Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 12th, 2021, and besides working in different parts of the property, I've been working down on the access roads, widening them, and the materials I'm using are the breakdown of a stone wall and tree components. And so I'll go into more detail about that when I get down there, but one of the things I wanted to look at is Hound here. Hound is our Komatsu CK35-1. So this is a track loader, and the reason I'm talking about this part of it is, this part in the video is that I'm always thinking about what are the functions of each piece of equipment. So what things do we need to do on our property? There's a whole list of things that I think are really important when you're deciding, first off, what are all the functions that we have on the property, then what types of equipment would best function and require less maintenance, less care, less damage as possible. So that's what I'm going to talk briefly about right now. So skid steers have been popular now for, throughout my whole life, and they've really made some tremendous improvements. Now this is a 2008 Komatsu, so it's a little bit older, 13 years old now, but it works like a horse, and it really is ideal for our property because we're on hard gravel property, and it undulates. It's very bumpy in places, and I'm tearing out stone walls, so I really need something that's super heavy duty like this one is, and I need one that has an undercarriage that will do the job and require less care and maintenance as possible. So most people will say, what condition are the tracks in? And the condition of the tracks are really dependent on how well you're taking care of the tracks on it itself. Now, these show a fair amount of wear. I think there's a little bit more wear in the year since over the years since I've owned it. But as you can see in some of the videos, I'm going through some really rough area, going over rocks, over stone walls, beaver spikes that are sticking up and all. But the tracks really don't show very much wear since I got it almost 1,000 hours ago. So the tracks are holding up pretty darn well. And I look at tracks like you'd look for tires on your car. No, you don't want to be replacing them very often, but if you take good care of them, you keep your tires inflated or keep your track tension appropriate, not too tight, because that can stretch the structural components of the track, or too loose, it can make the track start to wear more on the tracking parts where it goes around the sprocket and the idler wheel, and it can get dislodged from the support system. But the thing that I would say is on this property, there's two different main categories the way that I see it, and if people have other categories, I'm going to call this one a rigid undercarriage. That's that whole metal apparatus underneath here, the sprocket, the idler wheel, all of the rollers along the base. There's a roller also right up there, and you can see I just got done. I use a tree shovel and like someone who's planting trees. It's a very long spade on it, and I can reach up in there and get a lot of the material out. And see, most of this is very moist, mucky material, and that's the area that I'm working in right now. But the other type of support, other than the rigid track undercarriage, is I'm going to call it a bogie or a suspension system. So when you're driving with this track loader, when you go over, let's say a rock, and this track goes over it, you're going to have a big bounce inside of it because this is rigid. Now they make a different type of undercarriage for track loaders and skid steers, and it's more like a suspension system for bogies, like on a snowmobile. And there's a series of wheels all under there that are various materials, and then they have something like a rubber outer coating and all. And when it goes over a rock, let's say you got a rock this big, it's going to just conform to that and move along. One of the things I've learned over the years is the best part is no part, and the best purpose or the best process is no process. And what I mean by that is the fewer the parts that you have, especially mechanical parts, things that are in motion, the less wear and tear and the less processes that have to go on, especially when you're doing the repairs on them. So on our hard ground or on sandy ground, what would end up happening is we'd have more wear and tear on a suspension undercarriage as opposed to a rigid undercarriage. I know some people may find issue with my comments about this, but these have been my observation. There's YouTube videos of people going ahead, and the outer surface of the track looks good, but when you go under the under surface of the track, the actual mechanisms that hold the track in place, and I don't know how well these are showing up, but there's little projections, metal projections that fit on either side of the sprocket and the idler, and it goes in between each of these rollers down there, and that keeps it in place very, very well. Yes, these do get worn down, but they're part of the track which can be replaced. These steel rollers that keep the track in alignment here, these steel rollers down here that keep the track in alignment, yes, it is a rigid ride, but there's fewer parts to become damaged, and the parts are good steel sealed rollers, whereas the rollers that are in the suspension system have all different articulating joints that often need to be repaired. The outer surface of the wheels can get damaged, and the way that and there's videos of those systems, just watch how the dirt falls or the stones fall. Now, have I gotten roots up in here and stones? Yes. So one of the big advantages of having a track loader is this machine can spin right around, just like any sort of skid steer can spin right around on its own axis. So in other words, the bucket can be put right over here 180 degrees away, and the track loader not really take up any more room, like the little tractor is going to take. The turning radius is going to, it takes up quite a bit of space, even though it's a small tractor. This can spin on its own axis. When you're spinning and you're in rocky terrain, like we'll show you in a couple of minutes, the rocks are getting shoved into these areas, or dirt and material, it gets shoved into here, it works up around and falls down in here and slides off to the outside. Can there be damage to the rollers? There certainly can, if there's rocks and sticks or vines going up in here. When I bought this, there was a damage, a chip right here, I don't know if you can see it very well, out of the front idler wheel. And I looked at that and I said, geez, it isn't affecting function. It probably had a stone get caught up in between here and snapped off that flange part. That's not something that requires a replacement of that idler wheel. However, I just suggest that before buying it, watching some of the videos of the various types of rigid versus suspension systems. Now, if you live in a place, or you're just working on pavement and all, or you're working in a very nice smooth area that doesn't have a lot of rocks, sure, a suspension system will work out absolutely fine and all. For our functions that we have here, this is the best undercarriage that can reduce the amount of man hours and materials and time, money and materials to maintain a piece of equipment like this. So there's one new modification, and I'll go over that in a future video, to the undercarriage systems that I like a lot. It's a new improvement. But this has been absolutely fantastic. So we can spin 360 degrees. We can go through really, really rough terrain. We can have sticks and materials in there. We got to keep this thing cleaned out as much as we can. So once a day when I'm down there, unless it's just dry, powdery stuff that just flows off, I take the shovel and I clean the area out as best as I can. Really nice that this is mucky area, because this is where I was hauling stones into an area that was very soft, boggy material, and I hauled the stones and put them there. So we'll go down back now and look at the area that I'm talking about. So one of the things I've had to do is to widen all of my access roads, where in the future I'll have to bring the dump trailer down into the various parts of our zone 5, the various natural forests and all. So this is although it's a whole variety of different trees down here. There's a lot of maples, and there's a lot of ash trees that I'm taking out. There's oaks as well, and cherries, also, well, a whole variety of different trees. And this is an area that I hope that I wouldn't have to do too much work, but after all of the emerald ash and our grapevines, I find myself having to do repair work, and so I need to have wider roads. So I've been taking out trees, and I'll talk about the stumps and all for the trees, and many of the trees that I've been taking out in a couple of minutes. But this is one of the roadways going back to where the beaver dams are and where the access roads are. And you see littered all along the edges of the roads here that are rocks that fall out of the front of the bucket on Hound, the track loader, the CK35-1. Now this is all stone walls in here, and last year I came in and took out everything down in there, but I did not take out the whole rest of the stone wall, which these trees are on. You can see I took out some of the stone wall around where this tree is. You can see other trees here that were small in this area. This is the location where the tree that actually fell down and ripped off the mirrors on Elon. Elon is a Takushi TB290 excavator. But I've been taking out stone wall for a little over 100 feet. Probably can't see it down there, but there's just the end of the stone wall there. These stone walls have been here for for several generations at least, and the trees on either side of this are still encompassed in some of the original stone wall. The stone wall actually continues all the way up to this access road going right down on the other side of these trees. So I take Elon up here now to do as little damage as possible and break down the stone wall. Well, I'll walk up there. Break down this stone wall that goes right up here. There are piles of dirt that were pushed up with a dozer along in here. I've talked about that in other videos and all. And there's mounds of dirt, see, pushed up against this tree. But this is part of the original stone wall, and over the years it's been breaking down. The roots of the trees have been working in here, and so with Elon I can do as little damage as possible and scoop out the stones, bring them around, make a nice line here for myself. And it's difficult because you can't swing you can't turn the excavator until you're out into a wider area, because you'll smash the excavator and smash the trees. So the goal is to get as much of the stone in piles, but as you can see, this is really rocky for a track loader to come up in through. And I've got to turn the track loader in order to scoop up as many rocks as I can for each load that I come up. They're all variable sized rocks in here. And you can see every time I come down and go back, I have to spin around right here, and there's rocks in all this material. I keep trying to pack it all down. Now it's because of the sun just coming up over the horizon there, it's hard to see. But there's rocks in here. So all of that material, when I'm turning the track loader or the excavator, gets shoved into the tracks, gets shoved into the undercarriage, and the tracks are spinning around. And so that's why I like the rigid suspension the undercarriage of this type of track loader that Hound is. That's the Komatsu CK35-1, which I'm upgrading to a Takushi TL12, and we'll see when it does come in. It's supposed to come in next month in September. And then I'll be selling the Komatsu Hound, who's been absolutely amazing. Here's that other dead tree right here that I've got to take down, and I'm hoping it doesn't come down on top of me while I'm working here. But we need to get all this stone to build the dam, so we'll take a quick walk down, take a quick ride down to the beaver dam, and we'll talk about why I need all this stone and why I'm building it the way that I am building it. So this was a nice healthy maple tree, but it needed to come out because that was the least number of trees I had to take out in order to make the road wide enough for me to eventually be able to get a truck or a tractor with a dump trailer behind it down some of the main roads. The rest of the paths that we created, you know, I don't need them this wide. Pepe here, the Kawasaki 4x4 here, utility vehicle, can make it down these the paths just fine. And they're really made for walking paths, but we have to open them up with pieces of equipment. But they don't have to be wide. I have more work to do in here, but I widen this out. So there's more rocks right there as they fall out of the bucket of Hound. If they're in the center, I don't rush to pick them up. If they're where the tracks are, where they could slide into the undercarriage, I do try to pick them up. That's the Upper Beaver Dam access road there, which I still have to widen out, but I'm going to show you the one that I've been widening out so far. So I made videos last year about building these access roads around the dam. So you can always go back and see that and the materials we used to build it. So I'm extending the road up there to the new property, and I'll go up there in just a moment. But I've had to widen out the road, this road and that road over there, sorry about the sun, some in order to be able to safely get Elon down here, the Takuchi TB290 excavator down here, because the tracks are wide enough that it was right at the edges. So what I did do was I went and did same as I did last year. As I'm removing trees, I dig the root balls out. I put those in the base down below. Then I put limbs from the trees on top of the root balls. And then I take more root balls, shove them on top of it. And so like right here's a root ball that's upside down, so the trunk is down. This is one that's out to the side. But because it's so deep, and I used the excavator to dig as deep as I could on each of these sides, the woody material is very good as a foundation for this area. So is the woody material, isn't that just going to rot away? It will eventually, but if done correctly, it will take centuries for the woody material to break down. When fungi or fungi are the microorganisms that actually participate in breaking down woody material. And a few years ago I made a video, Think Like a Beaver, And one of the thought processes that I went through at that time was looking at historically how old, you know, archaeologists have dug out beaver dams where the beaver had long since moved on, and the woody material was still present as long as it was below water. And then I did some research and I looked at some of the dive sites as a scuba diver. One of the things we do is we dive on wrecks, and there's old wooden wrecks from the 7th century and all. And then we look at what are the requirements. So whenever we look at whatever the organism is, whether it's a tree, it has innate qualities, it has needs, and it has functions and products and all. And so that's the thing to look at. So for fungi to break down wood, they need oxygen, they need moisture, and they need the carbon source in order to do it. So when we want to grow mushrooms, we need to inoculate our wood chips or our logs, and we need to keep them moist. And so, but they don't have oxygen when the cells exclude all the oxygen from the woody material. Yes, the tops of the wood will decompose out there in the beaver dam from the trees that were dropped. But, you know, all of this wood that's below water level does not have the oxygen necessary for fungi to break it down. That process of decomposing of the wood is removed or at least chronically delayed. So that's one of the reasons why we use the woody material, even though it will decompose long after I'm gone, unless the water level drops considerably. So once we get the woody material down there, the woody material along the steep banks of these areas that I put all of the trees and stumps down in here, and then I come along and I bring the stones from the stone wall, put it on the woody material. Now the stuff that's above water level, that will decompose. So this side of this, since the water level is lower on the non-dammed area, and this is a dammed area, that water percolates through the stones and all and keeps this wood very, very saturated. But when we get close to this part, this is the area that will decompose. So on this side we need a lot more stone than on that side. I hope this is all making sense as I'm describing it. So I always want to go back to first principles. What are the innate characteristics, what are the needs, and what are the products of every element? Whether I'm looking at a piece of equipment, I'm looking at a tree, I'm looking at a microorganism, that's what I want to go back to when I'm assessing the situation. So this is the area. I posted probably 2 videos, I think, about coming up and extending this roadway. Oh, I'll mention this. I know I'm looking over here into the sun. This area here is wide enough, but I really have to widen out the whole rest of the area down here, down below down there, this road. So I need a lot more stone and a lot more tree stumps. And fortunately, I have the challenge of stone walls, stone piles, and I have lots of dead trees or diseased or damaged trees that are eventually going to come down as well. So all of that material will go into these areas, and by using the root balls and using woody materials, it's like a hugelkultur system with dirt covering the woody material. There will be growth on the outer parts, so that will break down. There will be some carbon dioxide put in the atmosphere, but with the growth on top of it, that will resorb the carbon dioxide and send simple sugars and all down to the microorganisms and on those. Just as you can see, we have all regrowth on this side, and there was regrowth all along in here, but I ended up having to knock it all down so I could see where I needed to widen the road. Over in here, you'll see in some of the video that I came in here with Elon, and I laid 1 layer of stone down in that part of the video. I've laid 2 more layers down since then. The upper dam is right up over here. I've been taking material and putting it up over here on this side. Sorry about this. The baby turtles are actually emerging right now. A little bit early this year, but probably because of our spring. And the trees, so the small brushy material I put right over here so it can decompose, and the beavers can have access to all that material. And the bigger trees that I took down 3 good sized trees here. In the other video I showed that I'd taken down those trees there, but I've worked my way in a little bit further. And there's another dam on the other side over there that I'm going to have to go through to stay on this property, but I've got to fill in these voids. And you can see there's a lot of moisture in here. So as I move over this area, I compact down the stone wall debris that I've laid here to fit in between all of the area. Over on this side, it's downhill, so that feeds down to the 3rd beaver dam. So after I get a little ways further, I'll make a spillway up in here so that there's less of a chance in spring that these roadways will be washed out, like we had some damage this spring as well. So here we are down here. I guess throughout this video I'll just put some footage of Hound going back and forth, and Elon digging out some of the tree material in here as well. So I think that's about it. So my goals in this video were to explain why I chose one of the reasons why I chose a rigid undercarriage for a track loader, which is very similar to an excavator, and decided not to go with a comfortable one. Explain how when woody material is buried and it's in a very wet environment where oxygen is devoid, we go into an anaerobic environment. That woody material does not go back up into the atmosphere. It does break down, but it feeds the soil, but it breaks down very, very slowly, and it is a wick for water. So, and I've gone over this in my hugelkultur pit videos in the past as well. So I know that there's people who will look at things and think, oh, by doing these hugelkultur systems the way that I talk about it, you're just putting carbon dioxide back in the atmosphere. And that isn't accurate. We need to go to first principles. We need to go back to the science and understand the physics and the biology, the needs of the microorganisms that actually do the decomposition as well. And how stones play a big role, and this property played a big role in my selection of the equipment that we are selecting to go into this next phase of our lives here. So if you found this video of value, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and you find this material somewhat interesting and all, please go ahead and hit the bell icon so you can know when we post more videos. If you shop on Amazon, please consider using our affiliate link down below. It doesn't cost you anything more, but it helps us support our channel so we can do much more work here as well. So take care, folks. Stay healthy. And always check the facts. Always go back and check the science. That's what I say. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye-bye now.